Is it hard being married to me? People ask that all the time. Is it hard? Steve, we're not talking about your marriage.
No, I'm talking about you.
We know.
I'm married to you half
You're
the time.
Not married.
Gosh.
He's the work husband. He's the work wife.
No, I'm the work husband.
Are you thirsty?
I am thirsty.
I guess so. You've done a lot of talking.
I worked out this morning.
I also worked out this morning.
I saw you across the room. You were doing something. But golly. No, I'm not that hard to live with. I'm pretty.
No, you're a good guy.
I didn't say I was a good guy. We're not judging my character. I'm talking about the ease in which it is to cohabitate. Yeah, we got our spaces. We got our boundaries. It ain't so bad.
No.
People want to know how we met. And we've talked about that before. Yeah. We met at a bar. At a bar years ago. Neither of us wanted to be there.
No.
We were there with other people who made us be there.
Yes, that's
I
true.
was wearing the ugliest cowboy hat ever.
It was big.
It wasn't big. If I showed you that cowboy hat, by the way, it's in the closet in my office at home. I've still got that hat. It's the ugliest hat ever. If I showed you that hat right now, you'd be like, that was the hat?
It was dark in the bar, though.
Yeah. It was a chocolate brown
There
hat.
was a lot I didn't see.
Yeah.
But I can see
trust me. That's true. That's true. And then
you saw his teeth from across the bar.
Then add alcohol.
Neon teeth.
Just teeth and the whites of his eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, I can remember. I remember what we were both wearing that night when we met.
Yeah.
I can remember and it was an ugly shirt too. I probably have that old rag hanging around somewhere too.
What I was wearing was not attractive.
No, it wasn't.
It was not attractive.
Yeah. Jade was out there.
It was like a black long sleeve turtleneck almost type shirt.
Well, I thought I lost her, right? Because I met her, and I was like, okay, cool. So I was talking to this girl and trying to play hard to get, and I was kind of hard to get because I wasn't interested in anything.
You were interested, but
I
you were
wasn't interested
acting
in the
like
idea
you
of
weren't.
a woman in my life, especially one
A good one.
here.
Yeah.
So Candace, we had a dance, and then she disappeared, and then I was like, well, dang, where'd that girl go?
Oh, that's when we went to the bathroom.
And I thought she left. I was like, all right.
I ghosted.
On to the next one.
On to the next, baby. And
you had your eyes on several others.
And I was like, dang, she vanished. What'd I do? And I remember looking around for her for a minute. I was like, golly, what did I mean, geez. Well, then I was going on the dance floor with this gal, and I felt somebody snatch my arm, grab me. And she was leaving the dance floor. She'd been out to dance with my buddy. And Chad Patton, we all know Chad.
He's a good dancer.
Border Patrol agent. Yeah, he'll tell you, but he's a good dancer too. He'll let you know all about it. But yeah, she's out there dancing with him. I was like, dang, girl, go and get around.
Yeah.
But I was dancing with another girl too. 22 Kill is a great organization. We've had our buddy Jacob Schick, who is founder of 22 Kill, in here. Jake Schick, I don't even recognize him anymore. He's lost so much weight.
Yeah, yes.
He's lost like 30 pounds, but doing a great thing over there. Obviously, we know that on average you're seeing 22 suicides a day from veterans that are suffering, as well as first responders that are out there. And you guys are doing a great job of curbing that and making sure that there's not only awareness, but there's solutions to it.
Yeah, that's our goal is, the mental health issue is actually to make a difference.
Yeah.
But the sad part about it, people get confused a little bit about 22 Kill. The sad part is we can't save anyone. We empower them, So it's, first of all, you have to be able to get over that stigma. And that's what we're trying to help veterans and first responders with, is the stigma that you got to say it's okay not to be okay. I mean, the fact of the matter is everybody's depressed. Everybody goes through something. So that's very difficult when it comes from the veteran side and from even the first responder side. Those are the things that people emulate that says, oh, those are the tough people. And that, but actually it's the tough thing to come in and say, listen, I have an issue. I need some help. But we do it, in all kinds of neat ways. I mean, the great thing about us, we have traditional, non-traditional therapies, and people ask, well, what's non-traditional? Well, it's the hunting, the fishing, motorcycle riding. Our wind therapy program has really taken off. So we try to do a lot of things to get that camaraderie back, get them part of the tribe, and then let them work on themselves. That's the best part.
How did you get involved with them?
It's interesting. So, there's a little confusion of how we all started, but we actually, Jacob and I kind of branched off at a certain point. So before that, 22 Kill was created by another Marine, and he started it with another program called Honor, Courage, Commitment. It was more of an educational type program. And when I got involved was actually way back in the very beginning when they first, 22 Kill went out at the Dallas Star Center, and it was the first time they ever did this, and they were going to kind of launch the program of just awareness. And I happened to be there, and I ended up meeting and talking with them, and they asked me, I put an event together, and, the hardest thing, I think, for first responder charities and veterans charities is to raise money. Mm-hmm. And that's because the people that are in those organizations, they're not fundraising people. So, of course, the first mistake is they just think, let's just do it in a bar. We'll raise some money in a bar. So you get the $500 or the $600, or maybe you get $1,000. So the first thing I brought to them is my experience was I was actually on the Ronald McDonald House board for 7 years.
Yeah, another great organization.
And I ran the golf outing for many years and really honed how to chase after some dollars.
We were talking about the dad bod earlier. I think that the reason that is attractive is because from the female perspective, this guy perhaps is okay settling down, not quitting life, not stopping, but they're not necessarily out there trying to hook up with the girl that's got shorts on that look like underwear and the t-shirt that's over it. So it looks like they have no shorts on.
Okay, so let's use
I'm not sure what that trend is.
Let's use the guy that's middle-aged, 45, 46 years old. Let's use my guy as the example again, my age. He wouldn't know what to do with it if she said, bring it on. This 21-year-old girl comes to him and she's all bing, bang, doom, and she got her bloomers on. He'd be like, he wouldn't know. I mean, he'd want to. Mm-hmm. He would know theoretically what to do. but he would be like, oh, honey, I'm feeling kind of tired. I think you can head on out now. But it's true.
Well, I've tried to tell Brandon, when I see him looking at a couple of girls that are just wearing T-shirts and their Vans or whatever, and it looks like that's all they're wearing, and I'm like, remember, everybody else is looking at those girls too. So, be sure that you're picking a female that's yours, that not everybody else is trying to hook up with.
I can remember years and years and years ago, probably 20-something years ago, maybe not quite, but about 20 years ago at least, my brother, we were riding down the street, and these girls were walking down the street, and my brother goes, who's 10 years older than me, he said, girls are just different. They look different these days. And I said, no, they're packaging them different these days. Mm-hmm. It's a big difference. Women have always been built the same way. I mean, the feminine body is what it is. And, we have the dad bods now because we don't work physically as they did in prior generations. Yeah. Used to be, my grandparents, my grandfathers, they got up in the morning, they ate biscuits and gravy and pork chops and eggs and they were skinny as a rail because they call that you got to eat something that's going to stick to your ribs.
Right.
Because those guys were going to eat. They were going to work all day out in the sun. Now we live a sedentary life. We have to get up and go pay money to do things.
And they probably had worms.
They had a tapeworm.
Back in the early 1960s, 75% of black households were two-parent families. Then all of a sudden, these days, it's dropped all the way down to nothing. The percentage of black households where the father is present in the household is non-existent. It's non-existent. There are financial reasons for that. There are welfare reasons for that. There are ways to fleece the system by it being that way. And it's become an acceptable practice. And it has. So you go to Baltimore, you go to Detroit, you go to the south side of Chicago, and it has become epidemic. 55% of gun violence is black-on-black crime. People want to talk about white supremacy and this white nationalism, and that's the reason for all this violence. White-on-black homicides when it comes to gunplay is less than 1% in this nation. It's a non-existent thing. So what do? Everybody wants to talk about mental health. I want to talk about family health. Let's talk about these role models. Who are these kids being mentored by? It should be a dad, but unfortunately, you're right when you say, okay, how do we roll this back? How do we fix this? And there's got to be people. There's got to be men, real men, and men are key. Mm-hmm. I know everybody wants to just abolish the genders these days, men are key. Because who is supposed to be that example of mental toughness?
And the race part of it's really irrelevant at that point.
It really is, yeah.
Regardless, it's like if you're without a father, there are detrimental effects tied to that.
Doesn't matter if you're white, and because again, there's a lot of these mass shootings. Obviously, they've been perpetrated by white kids.
Race irrelevant. It's without
Yeah.
a father in the household. And you go back and you say, well, then, I catch a lot of slack on that. And like, so you're saying moms can't do a good job. They absolutely can, but we each have the own things we provide when raising a child. A mom, for instance, does things, she's more nurturing. She explains things more to a kid, whereas a male, a father, is more likely to say, here it is, take it, deal with it. So it teaches them critical thinking skills, where a mom might walk them through it. A father says, this is the way it's supposed to be, figure out how to fix it. So there's no right or wrong way there, but the problem is, without a combination of both of them, a boy can listen to his mom say, this is what you're supposed to do, but lead by example. They're going to learn a lot more by seeing their father actually set the example than hearing their mom say what needs to be done.
I respond to the actions of my kids a lot of times, and I will say, now, how would my dad have dealt with that? And I realize it is very, very different because my dad was a disciplinarian. My dad was an engineering. He was an engineer, so he had an engineering mind. I am everything but an engineering mind, okay? So I've always been a talker. My dad was very quiet. My dad very, very stoic and very dry sense of humor if it ever even came out of him. And my dad was a tough guy. He was a hard guy. He's a good man, but he's a hard guy. And so I look at that and I'm like, I thank God that my dad who was always there, but he was tough on me. And as much as I hated that, it made me a better person, even though our personalities were very, very different. Mm-hmm. It helped me learn to solve things and deal with things because he didn't just make it easy for me. Mm-hmm. And I find myself a lot of times with my kids just making it easier. Mm-hmm. My dad, when I went off to college, University of Georgia, my dad gave me $25 a week. That was it. That was gas money. That was food money. That was $25.
Don't spend it all in one place.
A week. And that was it. And these days, my two oldest daughters are off at two different universities. And, my 19-year-old daughter, she's like, can you help me with rent again this month? Yeah, baby, don't you worry about it. I got you. How much you need? $450. Here's $600.
Keep the change.
Yeah. You get you something to eat, baby.